December 16th, Orange Board of Education meeting to order at 7:17. Before we stand for the pledge, I would just like to recognize all the veterans in the community for all that they've done for all us and the sacrifice that they've all gone through for us so that we can actually have a meeting like this. People don't understand that sometimes even the smallest meetings like these in the grand scope of things are available to us as Americans because of veterans, past and present. So after the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could stand for a moment of silence. And I would also like to recognize Mr. Ulring, who is our technology guru, and he is a Marine veteran. And Keith Marquis is also a veteran. He's a former board member. I'm sure there's others that I can't remember off the top of my head. So can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mission statement. Mrs. Welander, please.
The Orange Elementary School District recognizes that the education of each child is a shared responsibility of every member of our community. Our goal is to inspire and empower each student to achieve academic excellence, embrace social and individual responsibility, and lead with integrity. We believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect. Together, we will make a difference.
Many of you know Nathan's mom. That's Mara. She was a board member for a few years. I know that Mr. Ziman wanted to make a comment on the letter.
I know that we don't normally, at least I never normally acknowledge correspondence. I didn't think that's my place as just a member of the board, but I did want to write to Nathan because I thought he had the interest and followed it up with action, and that should be applauded. And I thought I'd get in touch with him and explain basically why it's not being done. For those who don't know, he asked about bringing back the snow days, which as a teacher were my favorite days. And but I understand why we're not having it, and I just thought I'd like to explain it to him.
Mr. Kraut, is that a done deal? Snowden? Not happening?
No.
I don't know that it is. I just wanted to acknowledge that if we don't acknowledge the snow days, that would be why.
Yeah,
No.
so we haven't decided, we haven't voted, that's still an open issue,
Yeah.
and thank you, Nathan.
I don't know that I don't know that we're going to, but.
I think Mr. Ziman's point was the fact that Nathan went ahead and put pen to paper and made his thoughts known to us, and that should be commended. Dr. Scarpetti will probably speak to that, or will speak to that issue later on. We received a note from the Lasto family. Orange Board of Education, thank you for all the prayers and support. We really appreciated the gift cards and are thankful to live in such a great community. Stay safe, the Lasto family. All right, consent agenda. I will need a motion to accept the first item under the consent agenda. The first item is the minutes from the October 19, 2020 Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes? Betty? A second. Ken, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Chris? What do you have? I think we have 2 abstentions. You got that, Mary? Do you need the other ones yet? Or are you good? You got them? Okay, thanks. Superintendent's report. Dr. Scarpetti?
Good evening, board members. It's nice to see everyone here. I was going to talk a little bit briefly at the end of my report about snow days, but since it was mentioned that this was approved by the State Board of Education, we received information from the commissioner that it states that the superintendents have approval to choose between snow days or not regarding remote learning days. We're going to continue to investigate this. The reason why I was going to share it a little bit later is for this reason. You may know that we began our 12th week of school in person. And quite honestly, that says everything about everyone working in this community. Our staff, teachers, custodians, everyone with regards to making sure that students have accessibility of in school. With that, it also includes the parents. We've been on a good, let's say, road of keeping our schools open. As you have heard, and as I've shared with you as a board member, we have had a few quarantines. In my mind, that was expected, but at the same time, it shows that the cohorts work. It shows that the mitigating strategies work. Wearing masks, social distancing, washing hands, this all works. The challenge we're seeing now, which I think all of you may have seen, is the positivity rate is increasing. Last Thursday, the state reported, specifically the town of Orange, not the district of Orange, but the town of Orange just beat that cusp of over 15 per 100,000. We're at 15.9. And this is the domino effect. The domino effect, as you may have seen in other districts, when there's a COVID case and schools have to quarantine, they may not have the resources for classes to continue. In addition, and why I'm connecting the two about these snow days, if we have to go on to remote learning and it's a snow days, then it won't be an issue. But one of the things we will do is investigate this along with BOA to see what our options are during those days. I know some people have talked to me besides young Master Sesente, but people have come, oh, it would be great because our schools, except not all our schools, I should say, don't have air conditioning. So is it best to use this opportunity for this year, because it's only granted for this year, to use those snow days? Some people said, Dr. Scarpetti, maybe you could have a happy medium of do a early release day so kids could get the day in but also enjoy the snow. So these are things that I'm contemplating and looking at the guidance that the state has shared. And again, please, if any of you have any questions or input, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly or through Mr. Kraut. That being said, we are getting ready for our planned hybrid and remote learning days. That's the week of Thanksgiving and after Thanksgiving. I stress those days are planned. However, with the positivity rates, I wouldn't be surprised if the collaboration we've been having with the health director, Dr. Mohammed, if we did not have these planned days, that we might be on either remote or hybrid at that time. So we're staying positive. We're staying hopeful that we could turn this around. Just because people are projecting these positivity rates increasing, we know that a change can happen. And this is why that Thanksgiving weekend is going to be pivotal about what will be the final decision when we return December 7th. We are hoping it's going to be in person. We don't know at that time. I will be collaborating with Dr. Mohammed during that week to inform our parents. The intent right now is to have in-person returning December 7th. But we do want to be cautious with those days. I'm sure if any of you have questions, I'll answer that. But just to finish my report, I do want to finish up with the personnel update that we did hire a special education teacher at Racebrook School, and a reading aide and math aide were posting. And as you may have recall, we have the postings of every substitute open. Why? Because we need those resources. We don't know at any time that if we may get a call, who may be impacted in our personnel staff, and why we need these resources. But I'm open to any questions with what I've reported so far, Mr. Crow.
Dr. Scarpetti? Very well. Thank you, Doctor. Ms. Koch, please.
Good evening, everyone. It is good to see everyone. Thank you. I do not have much to report today. Our budgets are on track. We have no unusual expenditures in the month. Our auditors were here today, and they're working on the agreed-upon procedures audit for the relevant expenditures and student data. That's due December 31st. So we have that going on in central office. We've also been working on parallel payroll runs with the new system, and we're going to be issuing our first paychecks from the new system on December 12th. Budgets are ongoing as well in central office. So for 2021-22 budgets, they're being consolidated, and budget holders are meeting with Dr. Scarpetti during this week, and final budgets are due back to us by December 1st. And free lunch is extended through the end of the school year, and we're trying to introduce more hot lunches as we go, because that's been very popular with the kids. And that's really all I have to report.
Good evening. I'd like to report that as planned on November 3rd, Election Day, our teachers all selected their social emotional learning goals. Each teacher selected one goal and 2 reasons for each goal and 3 action steps for their goals. And all the information was entered into our digital electronic platform, Talent Ed. And after that work, all teachers participated in the social emotional learning course, or the beginning of it. And we did receive feedback from the teachers, which we are reviewing. The following day, on November 4th, we had district faculty meetings at each school through Google Meets. And during that time, all teachers reviewed report card information and the updated plans for the hybrid and the remote plans around Thanksgiving. Because as Dr. Scarpetti mentioned, we have those types of plans coming up for which a parent letter was sent home. After sharing those updated plans, and the reason was to make sure that we have clarity and ameliorate any expectation gaps for those plans, we also asked teachers to fill out a Google form with any questions that they may have. Our leadership team looked at all the questions. We provided responses, so we came up with an FAQ around those updated plans. And finally, we continue to engage in kindergarten embedded early reading success training with the classroom aides, because this is new for them, to add all of the reading intervention training. That's about it. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Questions for Dr. Russo? Mary?
Are the social emotional goals that the teachers chose for the rest of the year that they'll be working?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
for the whole year.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dr.
You're
Russo.
welcome.
Mr. Gray?
Good evening, everyone. Our custodians continue to work really hard at keeping our buildings clean and healthy for our students and staff. They took advantage of the time on Election Day to conduct a thorough cleaning of our buildings, using the auto scrubbers to scrub all the hallways and get into the classrooms with those. They also power washed our bathrooms and cleaned desks and chairs throughout the buildings as well. Our HVAC filters were also changed on Election Day. This was our second round of changes. We expect to have our third round of changes end of January, beginning of February. So we're trying to do this every 60 days or so. I just wanted to thank Don Foyer and the Public Works team who excavated and repaved a portion of the parking lot leading into the MLT playground. It had become quite disturbed and was there was a big pothole and chunks of the pavement were coming up. It was a very bad tripping hazard for the children and staff. So just asked him one day if he wouldn't mind coming over and maybe patching it for us, and they actually excavated it and paved the whole area. So it came out great, and now the children have a clean path to get into the playground. So I wanted to thank them. We're getting into the final phases of finishing up our capital plan to be submitted November 23rd to the Oakenquist Committee. So we're on target to be able to get that to them probably a little bit earlier. And last but not least, as Ms. Koch mentioned, food service, the free meals are going to be continued to the end of the year. And just wanted to let families know that during the week of hybrid and remote, we are going to be offering free lunches to any students who are at home. They just need to call the school and let the office know before 9 a.m. that they choose to have a lunch, and then they would need to come to the school to pick that up. And they can pick up a meal for any school-age child in their family. So if they have a student at Amity Middle School and they also have a student at Amity High School, they could order lunches for those students as well, and they can be picked up at the school that their younger child attends. So I wanted to put that out there as well. That's all I have for this evening, if anyone has any questions.
Questions for Mr. Gray? So just to make sure we're clear, the students would call their respective school for the free lunches by 9 o'clock in the morning on any particular day
That's correct.
that they're off?
That's correct.
Okay. And also, any family members that are school-age children
Right. Right.
do the same?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if the junior high is doing that or if Amity's doing that?
I'm not sure if they are. I would
Okay.
assume they are, because they are.
Yeah.
They've applied, I believe, for the SSO as well. So I would imagine they are.
Okay. All right, very good. That's good to know out in the community. Thanks, Mr. Gray.
You're welcome.
Board business, the 2021-2022, believe it or not, student calendar. Dr. Scarpetti, you'd like to make some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Crow. At last month's board meeting, I shared a rough copy. Here is, after meeting with the BOA superintendents, is what we put together. We're going to be looking for the board to adopt this calendar next month. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations, please don't hesitate for us either to talk about it tonight or reach out to me before the next board meeting.
Have any questions right now? Go ahead, Kim.
The things that you had mentioned previously was how well the minimum days that first week of school worked this year. Can you explain just sort of your thinking in not making the first, second, and third minimum days for the next school year?
Mrs. Brown, you're referencing the whole entire week versus compared to the first 2 days, is that? So we were talking about that, and I think the decision that we came up as superintendents of BOA is that it was nice to transition, but specifically with the hopes that we're not going to a full closure of school in March and kind of reopening that transition of 2 days, and to get the kids, because as we know that this also impacts parents. We are hoping, praying that we are going to be in a much better situation as a whole entire town, a nation, that will be ready to start that school year. I did share, though, with the BOA superintendents that this may be a conversation with my board with regards to maybe deviating away from this. So I defer to the board if they would want to do that for the entire week or not.
If things do not turn out the way we hope they turn out, you do have that flexibility, as you did this year, to do the half-day
Correct, Mr. Crow.
Any other questions for Dr. Scarpetti on this? Go ahead, Ken.
It's the first 2 days that are.
Correct. Beginning of this year with the assistance of the state, we were allowed 3 days to use for teachers, so they deducted those 3 days off the school calendar. Just as a friendly reminder, the state requires 180 days of school. We typically do 181. There's been years where depending on where that has fallen, that we've reduced it to 180. But we decided as a group that it's would be best to transition with everything going on. But to Mr. Kraut's point, we could always, depending on if we are in a situation, the board could decide to do the whole entire week if they don't decide this next month, but we could always change the calendar.
Any other questions for Dr. Scarpetti? I would encourage any board member who has any questions or concerns about the calendar to please contact him as soon as possible, so that if there are changes that need to be made or could be made, can be done. And then as early as possible, Mary, let's get the revised calendar out if need be to the board members for discussion. And then we will be looking to vote on that in the December meeting. Anything else for Dr. Scarpetti on this? Very well. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Kraut.
We have a couple of first reads here. CABE's title, is that 9 policy, Kim? I had to go back in the recesses of my mind to Title 9 policy 400-15154.44 is a first read. First read, Board of Ed policy soliciting prices, bidding requirements policy 3323. First read, CABE's transportation routes and services policy 3541.3. Again, I would encourage anyone who has any concerns or questions about these policies to please contact Dr. Scarpetti or myself or Mrs. Brow with any changes or additions that you may want in the policy, so that we can have them as first reads in the December meeting. Let's see, where am I? Yes.
If I may add, if you have any comments or questions now, this is certainly an appropriate time.
Sure.
I'll say this again at the committee report, but we would like to try to shift the discussion to the first read, so that if there are any questions or substantive revisions, that we can start discussing them at the first read rather than making big changes at the second read.
Anyone else? Does anyone have any questions or comments at this point? Very well. Thank you. Joe is not here this evening, so Mrs. Welander is going to give us a report. That's all right. You all set?
Susan wasn't able to be at the physically at the finance subcommittee meeting that we had before the regular meeting as planned, but she was able to call in. So thank you, Mr. Allring, for arranging that. As previously stated, there is not much to note. It was a three pay period month. Ms. Riccio thanked Ms. Koch for providing the training for reading the new Munis reporting. The cafeteria lunch program is extended through the end of the year for free lunches available to all students, and more hot lunches are being provided. So families are encouraged to take a peek at the menu to what new offerings might be available, and the audit is proceeding as expected.
Any questions for Mrs. Welander? Thank you. Personnel policy, Mrs. Brow.
There are 3 new policies that we are considering. The first one is a Title IX policy. It is a policy that we looked at in 2018, but there was some state, was it state or federal? There was state? federal changes that happened. So there were some updates that needed to be made to the policy. Without putting Mr. Gray on the spot, if you'd like to wrap up when I go through these, that would be great. If you just wanted to add a little bit of the work that you and Mary did. And so that will, this policy, the language in the policy is now current with the law for both students and for staff. We also looked at policy 3323, which is about bids, and we noticed that we had updated that policy and it was inconsistent with another policy that we had, and it was the other policy is 3321 that we probably meant to strike at that time, and it just was left on the records. And what we also did is just made sure that we were consistent with the town for any time we were requesting money from the town. So it's just small changes in that one. And then we had a regulation for 3541.3, but we did not have a policy. And so we looked at the K policy for that, made some slight changes to make sure it reflected orange. And so that's what you're looking at for those three policies. And as I said, the Title IX policy and the bids are some that we looked at 2 years ago. So if they look familiar to you, they are. And again, with first reads, it would be really great if we could start having the discussion at the first read so that any changes can be discussed at that time so that we're not making big changes on the second read. And the committee will be meeting the Monday after Thanksgiving weekend, the last Monday of the month, if we can work out the scheduling, and we'll let you know that really soon. Thanks.
Give me a moment, Mr. Gray. So, Mrs. Brow, you're asking for, all right, I'm just going to use these as an example. Your committee met on, I don't know, what was it, 2 weeks ago, a week ago?
Yeah, the last Monday.
So if I'm reading between the lines, you're asking that the possibility of those policies, once the changes were made at that meeting, go out immediately to the board prior to
And
the next?
They
did.
very quickly.
Okay.
So now we'll keep doing that. We'll send them out quickly so that everyone has time to review them.
Okay.
For the following board meeting for the first read.
All right. So this is a little different than the way we've done it before. So check your emails, and if you get the opportunity, read the policies that may be being sent forward from policy committee, so that if there is a discussion, maybe we can have that at the first read, and then just put the finishing touches on it, and we'll have it as a group.
And thank you, Mary, for making that.
Yes. As always, thank you, Mary. You're doing a great job for us. We keep changing things on you, but anyway, Mr. Gray?
Just a brief summary. Mrs. Ito and I have been attending workshops and seminars regarding the new Title IX regulations. The policy that did come out from CABE, interestingly enough, does go through, it does follow the regulations exactly. I was actually sitting in one of the online seminars, and I had the policy in front of me, and as we were going through the seminar, everything that was in the policy was being discussed in the seminar. And the guidance is to combine students and staff together, because really what the regulations are is the process by which we follow any allegations of sexual harassment in the district. And we've already begun updating our website because that was supposed to have happened this summer, August 14th. So we've already updated our website, and now it's just looking at the policy to make sure that that is in line with the new regulations, and the CABE policy you have in front of you really is aligned well to that.
Questions for Mr. Gray? Thank you.
Thank you.
Buildings and grounds. By the way, Mr. Flynn, you did a very nice job on the last meeting. Very informative and very efficient.
Because I was not here, Mr. Kraut. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant last month's meeting. I wasn't. You had such a dry delivery, sir. I could not tell if you were.
You were not here. You were very good.
Hello, everyone. I hope you and your families are well. I'm going to start backwards, if you'll indulge me. We've been focusing over the last 5 or 6 months, as you might imagine, on getting our buildings up and running for this current situation. Next month, we're proposing focusing again on security and hopefully we will be back in person. But if you've seen, school is a little bit different, and we wanted to perhaps touch base with some of our security officials here in town, including the fire marshal and hopefully representatives from the police. So that's kind of where we're going. Mr. Gray did highlight many of the ongoing things that are taking place to keep the school safe. And I think you'll probably notice a trend that's progressed over the last 7 or 8 months, in that there really is becoming a much more systematic and scheduled practice of keeping things up and maintaining them. He mentioned, just for example, what was taking place on Election Day. Heading back, Buildings and Grounds, we did meet at Turkey Hill 2 Mondays ago, and our main focus was really taking a look at some of the capital requests that as a board we were going to be pursuing with the Board of Selectmen. And those included really some items that are probably familiar to most of you, as we've discussed them before. But this included both sidewalk and brick repair, the possibility of exploring a generator to help with the backup of some of our electronic sources, annual smart board replacement. You might know that Mr. Allring has really done a nice job of kind of integrating a planned schedule of upkeeping our technology. And I think Buildings and Grounds really has a lot of support for doing that with some of our other infrastructure. Speaking of infrastructure, this is now my 3rd year on the board. And when I first joined, I was surprised to learn that some of the conditions of the school furniture that was really considered obsolete and outdated. So that was also one of the things that we're sending along to the I know it's nicknamed the Oakenquist Committee, but I believe it's the capital expenditures part of the Board of Selectmen. And I sincerely hope that they will support this, because that furniture we really needed 3 years ago. And I can't speak for the whole subcommittee, but I can speak for myself when I say I really think it's well past time that we start making a scheduled and systematic plan schedule of replacing many of that. We also discussed some of the other items that we submitted, and one of the largest ones was, of course, the support of bringing air conditioning to Racebrook and Turkey Hill, which, while is a big ask, I think the committee, and you can check the building notes there, there's a lot of support for bringing those 2 buildings up to speed with our other facilities. And I think we could all agree that there really has never been a more critical time for improved ventilation. So I'm very, very hopeful that the Board of Selectmen can approve that and find that. I can't speak again for the subcommittee, but from my own opinion, if they were not able to, I'm going to be hoping to bring that as perhaps part of our board budget next year, because I do believe that ventilation is quite important for a number of reasons, not just temperature control, but also improved health. Lastly, this is the month of Thanksgiving. When I look back at where we were in March or April, what an incredible effort our community has put forth to help get our schools back up and running. Pardon me for a moment, I'm thinking more of a dad here as opposed to a board member. Pardon me. But what an incredible effort by the team in our community. First and foremost, our custodians and many of our security staff who helped with the increased maintenance responsibilities, our school nurses, our principals who had to figure out new ways of entrances, exits, and many other details, our teachers on the front lines, and many other of our community partners who stepped up, including the Board of Finance, who came through with additional funding to help get our schools up and running this summer. The Orange Congregational Church, which donated some parking to help with the new entrance and traffic flow of Mariel Tracy. Father Norman and the Parish of Holy Infant, who donated a lot of desks to help our extended goal for social distancing. All of you on the board who have also worked very hard to get these schools open and running. And of course, Mr. Gray, who has brought great professionalism and dedication to helping make sure that our schools are not only ready, but we're staying open to the best of his ability. If you look around our our state, there aren't too many schools that have been open fully like Orange has. Many can't because of the nature of high schools and middle schools. But I would submit to you that this was a stunning accomplishment to open fully, to open well prepared, to open with a plan, and to open safely. So I thank Dr. Scarpetti for leading that, because it took a lot of hard work, hard time. We've talked many times about sometimes it became a moving target with some of the changing initiatives of the state, and he and his team really helped that. And of course, again, as the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to thank someone who I think is a absolute gem in our community and a leader of civil service and community, and that is our board's leader, Mr. Kraut, who has invested numerous weeks, hours, and months behind the scenes, working through every detail, and bringing both great intellect and passion and community service in helping the kids in Orange. And if you know Mr. Kraut, there's nothing he hates more than a compliment. So I thought, what would be the best compliment I could give him? And I say, Mr. Kraut, thank you for treating all the children of Orange as if they were your own. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Flynn, any questions for Mr. Flynn? Well, I know I can speak for the board when I say we're a little disappointed that there's no headband tonight.
I discussed that.
Mr. Ziman?
As the train in the distance gets closer, its details and features become clearer. The same thing happens at some of our meetings. Messages get expanded. One of the things expanded on was this year's social emotional learning-based teacher evaluation process, which I discussed last month and frankly have used all my good material on. So I'll only reiterate that this fits in perfectly with the fact that our teachers are currently participating in the Yale Center's Emotional Intelligence course. This evaluation process was presented on November's Professional Development Day. Something else that came up was our system's use of the Columbia Teachers College resources. While these form a cornerstone of our language arts program, they are combined with other scientific research-based methods to offer our teachers and students the widest breadth of tools available. This is a little off my committee report, but the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean, as of November 12th, reported there have been no new cases of the coronavirus dating back months because they have closed down the islands. While we, of course, can't do that, we can make every effort to keep it out of our schools. I don't believe it's a foregone conclusion we will have to move to distance learning. But the good news is, if that occurs, we are as prepared as we can possibly be. This, however, is the future. For now, it's important that we make every effort to keep COVID-19 out of our schools. Traditionally, we often expected staff and students to consider coming to school even when they might not be feeling well. Now we're depending on our parents and staff to be more cautious than ever and be willing to stay home until they're assured by following the guidelines that they're not likely to transmit illness. Through our online resources and Google Meet, any students who find themselves home will not be abandoned. Every attempt will be made to help them keep up with their work. At this time, we're not 100% comfortable with this, but we're working on it and we're closing in. Also, the fact that we've been able to have started on time and reached to mid-November with almost no, this is not as eloquent as Charles, but nonetheless. We have reached to mid-November with almost all our children engaged in full-time in-person learning is something to be proud of. Full credit goes to the administration, all our staff, and our parents and guardians.
Mr. Ziman, any questions for Mr. Ziman? Okay, as a reminder, believe it or not, it's next month, next meeting, you'll be getting a sheet with different committee assignments on it. It's time to pick committees, so if you want to change your committee, add a committee, that'll be the time to do it. So I'm just bringing it up so you can put your thinking caps on. And as always, you have no idea how much I appreciate all the work the committees do, and the chairs of the committees. It's incredible. It's a daunting task at times, and you all always come through, and I do appreciate it. Let's see, what's next here? Oh, ACES. I spoke to Ms. Riccio. She wanted me to remind the board, let me just pull her up if I can. ACES is still doing the clothing drive, so I'm just going to read the text that Ms. Riccio sent me. ACES Clothing Drive supports ACES Outreach and the Access Program, as well as Columbus House. I don't know if you're all familiar with Columbus House. They do a great job in downtown New Haven. They take in, food, and that's a great place. The ACES Access Program supports work in the community and assists with securing employment for employment for Access individuals and ACES students. The Warm Hands, Warm Hearts Drive is asking for hats, socks, gloves, coats, and men's, women's, and/or children's clothing. Donations can be made through December. So I am asking the board to support ACES in their drive the best that they can. If you have any of these items, Sue said by all means contact her. She can pick it up, we can drop it off. Even if you've got to drop a bag off here, we'll find a place for it. Okay? So that's ACES. Let's see, anything else? Mary, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Is it? Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to congratulate Mrs. Wieslander on being elected to Connecticut's House of Representatives.
Yes. Congratulations. So I am looking for a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting. I think, don't forget what? I don't know if we can have one. I'll do my best. Oh, you know what? Mrs. Wieslander is going to make the motion. Mr. Ziman second. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Very well. We are adjourned at 8 o'clock. Thank you.